Good evening, brothers and sisters. Good evening, my fellow Africans. Good evening, well wishers. Good evening, partners all out there. We want to say a God bless you to all of you. Welcome again to another session, to another round of AfriH. We are Africans for the Restoration of Ethics in Government. We're excited to have a guest with us this evening. We'll dialogue about a conversation that is very important and dear to every one of us hearts. The future of Africa. The future of Africa. As you know, AfriH, the vision of AfriH started as a burden, as a concern, literally, regarding what we see happen time and time again to many of our brothers and sisters who try to cross from Africa into Europe. Every now and then I try to follow the news. There's a migration. They leave from Africa to go all the way up to North Africa, and then they try to cross the Mediterranean Sea into Europe. And oftentimes, those ferries that's taking them across the Mediterranean Sea will capsize, and countless of African lives are lost. And another group will take the journey, for a better life, for a better opportunity, and a handful of them will end up crossing. And there are hundreds of Africans buried in the Mediterranean Sea because of a quest for a better life, and that really triggers something in my heart. You know, what if Africa will rise up, African leadership will rise up and create an avenue and build the infrastructure that our African brothers and sisters will be able to improve their living condition and live a good quality of life. Rather than putting their lives at risk to take this risky journey into Europe and end up being buried in the sea. And it is this burden on my heart that kind of gave birth to Afriage. That we need to bring professional Africans that we can look at different sectors of culture, different sector of the African continent and the African infrastructure, and see what are we missing. How can we come alongside Africa to improve, to give words of wisdom and counsel and advice to African leadership, to Africans in general? How we can have a continent that can take care of its people. Because the reason why they make this journey, because they're not enjoying the quality of life that they believe the government should provide them. And so they try to seek welfare and success elsewhere. And unfortunately, it ends in a tragedy. So we bring professional Africans and global partners, those who are non-African, but just a dialogue. And today we're going to be looking at an era that we believe is so critical to the future of Africa. I believe that Africa can do better by simply doing right. And there's so many different areas that Africa can focus on. But as we go through these different podcasts, we bring people to look at different industry, different sector of the African society, and see how we can speak words, words of wisdom to those in leadership to be able to develop and strengthen these different sectors so that our people can have a good quality of life. Today, it's an honor. It's an honor for me to have one of my guests. He's a man of God. He's a minister of the gospel. He's an apostle. He's right here with us in Minnesota, in the great state of Minnesota, and he does a lot of work to impact the next generation. We're going to be talking today with Apostle Edward Neepaye, and we'll be discussing on the topic. As you can see on the screen, we'll be discussing on the topic youth engagement for a better Africa. Youth engagement for a better Africa. And that is a burden on his heart. That's a burden on the heart of all Africans. I hope at least that should be our burden. That the future of Africa is in the hands of the next generation. And what contribution are we making to prepare them to handle the baton that will be passed to them? To give Africa, to give the fellow Africans a continent or country that can take care of them. So tonight again, welcome to us, Apostle Edward Neepaye. He is the pastor and general overseer of Conquerors Christian Center here in Minnesota, and a dear friend and brother. Apostle Neepaye, welcome to AfriReach.
Thank you to you and your darling wife and family, Dr. Ricks. Thank you so very much. Africa, the young folks, specifically as it pertains to Liberians, it has been a passion for nearly 40 years. We have been up on this journey, and we believe that in our generation, we will see a transformational impact occur in the lives of Liberians, in particular, generally throughout Africa. There are a lot of positive trends that are observable in our generation. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Can we dive into our conversation for the night?
Definitely, definitely.
Let's
Let's go
dive
into
let's
it.
dive right in. Well, for the sake of our audience who don't know you a lot, or maybe don't even know you, could you do us the honors just maybe tell a little bit about yourself and your ministry, your work you are doing, particularly when regards to the young people, the next generation. I know you alluded a little bit just now, but could you just at least give them a formal introduction? Who is Apostle Nepe and what is
Thank
he
you.
doing? Amen.
Thank you so
Go,
very much.
go
Well,
ahead,
first
sir.
of all, I'm a child of God. I love the Lord. I've been walking with the Lord now for nearly 38 years. Called into full time ministry. My wife and I, Shirley, we have 4 sons. We have 4 grandchildren. Our ministry was pioneered in 1991 in the suburb of Monrovia, capital of Liberia, and the Lord, from its initial stage and now that I'm going up in years, He reminded me that we started with the young folks, child soldiers. That was what gave popularity to our ministry back then in Liberia, Logan Town, and then everybody knows CCC, Central Monrovia. Those who are from Liberia in the 90s. But as I I've grown older, the Lord said to me, "You have to go back to your roots. You have to go back to the calling. You are called to prepare a platform for the next generation." And I say to you, Doc, I just returned from a mission trip in Mississippi at a church, African American church. I've been with that church as their missionary and director of mission since 1997. And the last day of the conference, I spoke on building generational legacy. What are we doing not only with the African community, but even the African American community in the United States that we have worked with for all these years? There is a serious challenge of holistically empowering both communities. And so my message was, one, how do we build the bridge? I know Ghana has done a great job in attracting the African American, but we believe that this is a dual approach. Africans in the diaspora must strategically begin to partner with African. Listen, the African American, whether you like them or not, these people yield close to $1 trillion in terms of how much they have the capacity to generate annually. They are a force. And if we work with them to not only cater to the spiritual needs of Africa and African youth, but educational and other areas. And statistically, let's remind ourselves that Africa have the world's youngest population. 60% of all Africans are under 25 years old. Let's
Wow.
understand what's happening here. By the year 2030, 42% of the global youth population will be based out of Africa. So the potential to positively influence the next generation is beyond our imagination. But again, we have to form a strategy and a partnership with our African American brothers and sisters to garner. It's all about resources, Doc. I always say to folks, Africa has a youthful population. We have the manpower. I just came from Africa in April, Liberia. Where are the resources to empower this young population? You alluded to the Africans that are trying to cross the Mediterranean. Thousands of lives being lost because from their perspective, the continent does not offer them a future. And so what can we do as the church, as religious leaders, to step in the gap and begin to extend some form of solution to the growing challenges? But again, it's doable. And in our generation, we will ensure that the trend shifts. And in the era of business, technology, agriculture, Africa is the go-to continent everywhere around the world. everybody is now saying that Africa is the final frontier.
Oh, wow. Wow, wow. Thank you so much for the stat. I forgot to even mention he's a historian too, so he has a lot of information on history. But what really struck me, Apostle, as you spoke, was he mentioned is 60% less than 25. So we have a
Under
pretty young,
25 years old.
under 25. We have a pretty young.
60% of Africa's population under 25 years old.
It's a pretty young continent. I mean, literally. And so then that brings me to the next question here with you. Again, based on yours, because you travel extensively, I know that for sure. Just knowing you travel extensively and do mission work around Africa and other places. But I'm curious, when you look at the continent holistically, I mean, we talk about the future. You have 60% under 25. What scares you, or well, maybe not scare per se. What concerns you? What concern you have about this youth, this continent of youthful people, and regarding their preparation for leadership tomorrow? Because whether we like or not, the baton, will be passed on. I mean, we're all aging. I mean, we're all aging, right? So the baton for leadership will be passed on. Well, as you look at the continent and the young people that you have interacted with, and you see, as you do you think, are they ready for the baton? Are they being prepared for that baton to be passed to them? So my question is, what concern you have based on your knowledge and experience? What concerns you have about the next generation being prepared and equipped for leadership tomorrow?
Forgive me, I always like to use the context within Liberia because that's where we work extensively. For the first time, we now have a national budget in the Republic of Liberia that is over $1 billion, and thanks to the insight of our current leader. And forgive me, I'm totally apolitical. I just call it as it is from the days of Charles Taylor. The educational budget of the Republic now stands at 11% of the national budget. So we do have leadership, and I think that is happening in other areas that we are observing. Burkina Faso, Saudi Arabia volunteered to build, I think, like 500 mosques in Burkina Faso. And the youthful leader of Burkina Faso said, come and build schools. So
Wow.
the leaders are waking up to the reality that Africa was left out of the agricultural age. She was left out of the industrial age. The IT technology, we barely have our people into that. Now we're into the AI age. So more leaders in Africa, good news coming out of Ethiopia, coming out of other countries, Ghana, that are recognizing that if Africa does not intentionally invest in her youthful population, once again, we will be left out. So I was impressed when I saw the budget for 2026, and thanks to our president, President Boykai, not only did he, for the first time in our national history, increase the budget to over a billion, 1.2 billion for a small country of barely 5 million people, but our educational budget now stands at over $100 million in the Republic of Liberia. Now, it might not seem much, but considering the population and considering the size of the nation, pretty small, we are the size of what, New Jersey, it could go a long way. What I would advise our leader is to focus on primary education. You can do everything, especially when it comes to, talking about generational impact. Let's start in every, for example, county, we call it county, you call it state, that we focus on building primary education where quality education, global education, our people should not be limited to just what is happening within the context of Africa and the world's a global village. So we impact that youthful generation at an early stage. Let me reference a scripture because, again, that's my background. The book of Joshua records great victories as Israel came into the promised land led by General Joshua and General Caleb. And we're told that they were able to effectively conquer most of the territories that the Lord had given them. In fact, that was the premise of my final message in Mississippi Sunday. But then we have one of the saddest quotation in the Old Testament, which is Judges 2, verse 10. After the death of the Joshua generation, there arose another generation that did not know the Lord. And so theologically, 500 years, the book of Judges, Israel went through that cyclical stage of rebellion against God, judgment from God, repentance, and then God will raise the judges until Samuel. And so, if Africa would just, the church would holistically approach empowerment, not just preparing people for heaven, but getting them in such a state that they can positively contribute to the global trends that are developing. We cannot afford to allow this generation to be left out. And so that is our focus. That is our legacy. That is what we are working towards as we constantly go back and forth and invest thousands of dollars in what is happening in Liberia.
For those of you just joining us, I'm here along with Apostle Edward Nepe, Pastor General Overseer for Conquerors Christian Center here in Minnesota, and we are dialoguing on the subject matter, youth engagement for a better Africa. You said something, Apostle, that was so profound. This generation, we cannot allow it to be left out. You know, it means that we all have a part to play. There's a contribution we all have to make. Now my contribution may be different from your contribution. Yours may be different from another person's contribution. But nonetheless, when you put everything together, there has to be some effort we are making to equip, educate, and prepare them for leadership in all sectors, not just spiritual leadership as you mentioned, but leadership in every
Realistic.
era, in every industry. As your, by the way, help us to understand what are some of the things that you are doing as a ministry, as an organization, as a person, in this era when it comes to engaging the young people, to prepare them for future leadership. What are some of the steps and initiatives that you are taking personally and as a ministry? Could you share with us?
Well, economic empowerment is strong. 2003, we opened our first elementary and junior high school in the capital, Monrovia, on Lane Street. Is still there. At our mother church in Logantown, we now have a high school, a facility that, when completed, it will be a 10-story facility in Logantown, Broad Street. It's now a 3-story facility. We intentionally built it. Again, I never transfer my global HQ, so Liberia is still my HQ. I still have offices in Liberia and a home in Liberia. So we are also very strong in teaching and giving soft loans for, like I said, hundreds of thousands of dollars have been invested in. We had to change our approach because, unfortunately, most of these funds were mismanaged. But we have always undertaken a holistic approach to empowering our people. There is a spiritual, there is the business financial component, and there is the academic component. We also now are negotiating with some family for, yeah, agriculture is also the key to building a vibrant Africa. And I believe the church, we are not just, a church, but denomination. We are fully engaged in going into that area of agriculture. Economically, we have worked with our people to ensure that they are self having the ability to earn. The Bible is not just about preparing people for eternity. There is a saying in the Liberian colloquia, dry does sweet, but what people will be eating until the dog get dry. So it's like, while you waiting for the millions to come in, you have to maximize the hundreds of thousands that you may have available. Futuristically, I believe that the Church of Liberia, and I've preferred this to some of the bishops of Liberia, we need to establish a Christian credit union or some form of financial institution that can help empower our entrepreneurs. The churches of Liberia holds the financial keys to Liberia's economic future. I tell you the truth. We have in our churches, I speak collectively, there are professionals from all walks of life, all academic training and areas of expertise are found right within the body of Christ in Liberia. And so, given the push, that is why I continue to encourage that we partner with African Americans that have the resources to go into that area of not just planting churches, but building financial institutions that can better prepare the future generation to participate in the financial destiny of Africa, Liberia.
And on another note, just thinking, as you are just, commenting and mentioning these things, how are your students, how are they reacting to such an initiative? I mean, do you see are they enthusiasm, or maybe because of the hardship, students got to skip school and go help the family on the farm or sell something. I mean, do you see your engagement with the youth? I mean, do you see a hunger in them? Are they hungry for these things that you are introducing to them? Are they willing to learn?
Well, honestly, to tell you the truth, the enthusiasm is beyond what we take it for granted here. I have four sons.
Mm,
Three of them were born in Africa. One's born in America. The man who was born in America will always say to him, "You don't understand what life is all about." The children, the parents, even when they can't afford, we started a system in our school that even if the parents cannot, when we went to school, first semester you pay that school fee, second semester your parents pay that. Now we have a system where the parents can pay as the children learn, because
wow.
we have adopted a policy. It's best to keep them in the school than to have them out of the school. So subsidy has to come in. We still have to heavily subsidize these institutions because, again, as a church-ran institution, I don't know about other churches. It's not for profit,
Hmm.
so there's no profitability in running these schools. But the beauty of what we do and the satisfaction is to see that our children do well at the national, when they go for the we used to call it government exam, now it's the ECOWAS exam, and they're always shining bright. But we have told the principals and administrators of the school, do your best to encourage the parents to keep them in school. So the first semester comes and the parents do not have all the school fee to pay for that semester. We have a payment plan.
Wow.
And the students, the capital city, you don't have students being taken out of school to go to farms. That's something that happens outside of the capital. So we do not even have enough schools, that are affordable to cater. The government have some schools, but because of the youthful nature of the population, we still unfortunately have young kids who are in the capital, and rather than being in school, they are out there selling and doing stuff. But the government is coming very hard on parents that are keeping their children out of school and using them for commercial purposes. But definitely, I can't say certain things here, but even if those children will practically live in the church just to be able to go to school. That's the situation we're dealing with some of these young folks who don't even have off the street. We rescue them. You call them Zobos in Liberia. Bring them nowhere to stay. They live on the church compound, but they are in the church school for free.
Wow.
So there are a lot that have been done to ensure within our institution to ensure that the children, once they become a part of the institution, we do our best to keep them there.
Thank you so much, Apostle. It's interesting because obviously we know that Africa is a big continent. And
It's
every
huge,
every every
400 plus
nation,
million.
yeah, every nation approach they have a whole different strategy. But I think the consensus is across the board that we need to engage the youth. If Africa going to be a better continent, I mean, Africa going to step up, and live up, the responsibilities that they were, entrusted to these leaders. There has to be an engagement with the youth. We got to target the youth, and I want to applaud you for just for what you are doing as a ministry and as individual, as a person, to prepare that next generation. I would just let me just look at some of the comments here. You have a number of people watching us. Obviously, my wife Visha is here with me, watching as well. We have Pastor Deste Crawford. She says watching, and God bless you. We have April July from watching from Chicago. So we have April watching. Minister Linda Kona is also watching. She said hello. She's a wonderful leader and father. So you got a lot of children. You got a lot of children,
I,
sir.
I know, right? Hi, Linda. I know, right?
You got a lot of
She
children.
does a lot of work in Liberia too. We thank
Yes,
God
yes,
for her in her own
and
ways.
yes, 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 she does. We did have her on, a while back. We got to bring her back again as well. But Visha has a question here for you regarding partnership, and she was wondering, is there a kind of partnership that could you partner with other financial, organizations, like for example, here you have Tribe and other places, that can come alongside organizations and churches, to help, these social, to meet these social needs, so what would you say in terms of, building this? Because we know government cannot do everything,
No,
especially in
no.
Africa. In Africa, I mean, it's amazing. In Africa, we have this huge government. Everybody. I mean, majority of the workforce is in the government. So the GDP, literally. I mean, I don't know the percentage that's going towards salaries. But it's so massive because we have the government is one of the highest, or the largest employer. When it comes to African politics. So what would you say concerning partnering with other, organizations, other NGOs, to help in this effort to equip and educate and engage with the youth for a better Africa?
Well, again, for the approach that has to be taken is, for time in memorial, we use this UN, United Nations, use aid, and they have come and they have done their share. But if we do not adopt a policy in which our people, the Chinese proverb, "Don't give me fish, teach me how to be a fisherman." I don't want to go deep into politics, but Africa's poverty and lack of progress is I don't want to say self-induced, but you cannot explain to me with my little college education and my knowledge of economics why a continent that has the largest natural resource deposit than any continent is the poorest. But we don't want to go into that direction. I brought up the African American community for a reason. Liberia historically was founded by African Americans. So if we can have organizations that are, I know that you pass things through government, it's too much bottleneck. There's
Yeah.
just too much rules and regulations, and before it the trickle down effect, before it get down to that village school, is gone. So partner with organizations and institutions that are already doing the work. We already have schools that we have maintained on our own for over 20 plus years. Like I said, our first school was opening 2003. Now we have a high school. As I speak to you, we are now raising the resources to put up a computer lab in that high school in Logantown. I said to my administrator and the board of trustees, we will not continue to run a high school in this community. Now you're from Liberia. Logantown is a slum community. Imagine if you put in a computer lab for those high school students, what it does to the ability to learn. Thanks to Elon Musk, Starlink, we now have Starlink facility at one of our churches
Oh,
in the
wow.
city, and so partnership. We look forward to the opportunity to have the African American community, diaspora Liberians, visit these institutions, self evaluate. Don't just take money. You see, we just take money and send it. I did that for so many years with very minimum impact. Now we are following it to see the impact. And so it is welcoming, but we have to be cautious and we have to be strategic. Africa is the final frontier. Every continent on this planet has accomplished great strides at human capacity development. With our youthful population, if we do not change the manner of approach, we might be left behind. I
Hmm.
told you, we started from the agriculture age, now we are in the age of AI. Will
Yes.
Africa be left behind? Not on our watch.
Wow. 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 I got a comment here from someone. I'm sure you know her very well. She's all the way in all the way in Alabama. Michelle Batty Perkins.
Yeah, I
And
know, right?
she said hello, my online pastor and family. Thanks for
I
all
know,
you're
right?
doing to support the youth in Liberia. So God bless you, Michelle. Thanks for your comment.
Thank you so very much.
Visha also mentioned, she said, I'm excited about the computer lab for the high school. For the high school, and, and,
Yeah,
and, and I like that. But I want to also, gauge your knowledge in this area too. I know we're talking about high school education, but like from she mentioned, yeah, computer lab for high school. What about early learning? Because again, with your knowledge of education, the little that we know that from birth. And some people say 3 years old, some people say 5 years old, but I would say I would go to 5 years old, because we're told that from birth up to 5 years old, if a child gets to learn to read, the future is bright. But those delicate years, if they miss out on those delicate years, it gets difficult. It's not impossible, but it gets difficult for them academically going forward. What is your take on that? I mean, what's your experience of your knowledge you have concerning Africa, or maybe as you mentioned, since you predominantly work in Liberia, but concerning early childhood education. How does the sector look like? From your experience and your knowledge, how does it look like? Uh, you know, are there resources? And you mentioned the billions of dollars, in terms of allocation, probably GDP. But the issue is, as you mentioned, is it being trickled down? Is it coming to the hands of the educators or the organization like yours that serve these young people and engage with them? Are those monies making their way to you? Or as you mentioned, the bottleneck is just squeezed somewhere and it doesn't come. But I just want to get your knowledge and your information on early childhood education. How is that industry like? From your experience.
Dr. Riggs, I was fortunate. We are the Tubman children, so I was fortunate to have been born and raised in Lamco Yekepa. You can evaluate my childhood education. Our instructors were from all over the world, and that is why I suggested that with the 130 something $1 million educational budget that the government has earmarked, that we try to focus on childhood education. Let's use the Bible, Psalm
Mm.
11, verse 3. If the foundation is destroyed,
Yeah.
we do have a youthful population throughout Africa. But imagine if we can now begin to think about strategically going down to that level, early childhood education. Every single achievement that we have been able to achieve academically, I owe it back to my experiences in Lamco Yekepa. Now, there were bone mines, there were lack in other areas. But the educational sector must strategically recognize that with the limited resources, you have to funnel resources into the areas that will, in the future, generational thinking. The late Dr. Miles Monroe, Africa's problem is that we are not generational thinkers. We have to go to early childhood education. That is the key. Once you build that foundation, no matter where that child goes, you can take what has been planted during the early stages of learning. And we were fortunate.
Yeah.
How about the hundreds of thousands of children in the villages? And remember, Monrovia is not Liberia.
Mhm.
Liberia is primarily a rural nation. A
Mm.
lot of these children, like you said, have to go on the farm. But if you place the facility where they are located with the benefits, they will change their farming habits and ensure that their children at an early stage obtain a quality education that is necessary to foster future accomplishments. So it is very strategic considering the limitation we have in resource education. Very, very.
Wow. Wow. Sorry, we lost you a little bit, but Michelle just posted. She said, "Birth to five are the most critical years in a child's development." Just to kind of buttress and confirm, what you just talking about. That those are the delicate years. Uh, you know, as we're getting near to wrap up our conversation, I want to just, this just came to my mind to just ask you. Looking at the education platform in Liberia, um, talk to me about the teachers. How are you saying, the equipping of teachers, the learning, because you know 0 to 5, I mean, again, that's a delicate years, and you would think that you would want people of strong in academic background, you know what I mean, to pour into your children, to teach them those reading skills. to discipline them. And then also, some of the challenges we have, not just the curriculum to actually prepare teachers, but even at home. When you guys do the work you do with the children, in your institution, and then they go home, I think the expectations that if the parents at home will at least try to reinforce some of the things that the teachers, are imparting to these young minds. To talk about those two relationship between the teachers and the parents, and what information do you have to share with us in terms of, teachers, the education of teachers in specifically in Liberia?
Well, I know the Minister of Education. I have one of these. One of our pastors at one of our churches works. She's one of the high level at the Ministry of Education in Liberia. I know that the curriculum is West African, so we have the West African educational certificate. So we have WIEC. So basically, the curriculum is standardized. I know that the Ministry of Education, because of the shortages of teachers, have absorbed a lot of teachers, but that does not affect the private sector, like churches who are schools ran by churches. So we have to generate the resources through giving and other things to fund. I know that we have to funnel resources even from the church tithes and offering. If you want to know the in total how we run this educational system, is from the giving of the people and what we can generate here and send to subsidize. But the curriculum is standardized. Now, when it comes to the impact of the environment, that's a challenging situation because honestly, outside of Monrovia, if you move into rural Liberia, we're talking about electricity, we're talking about the availability of certified teachers. But a lot of the teachers that work in these regions outside of Monrovia are volunteers.
Wow.
So you have folks who might be working in Cape Mount and they're working in a village in Cape Mount, but he went to school, he has a high school education, maybe a junior college education. He goes back to the village, he becomes a primary teacher in the village school.
Wow.
Now, the Ministry of Education have been working assiduously to absorb these teachers into the budget so that they can get some form of stipend. But
Yes.
if you run a private church owned educational system, then the church or the denomination, whether it's the Methodist, whether it's the Lutheran, whether it's a Catholic, you have to be responsible to generate resources to maintain the facility and to upkeep these instructors. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the home environment because it is a very challenging area. As we know, the level of poverty and lack in these communities astronomical. It's beyond the imagination of most Westerners to see
Wow.
that these kids have to sell in the morning and go to school in the evening, or they will have to come home and go and help their parents in the market. These are just challenges that we have to deal with the situation. But the enthusiasm and the parents themselves are now recognizing that their future is predicated upon their children going to good schools. So a
Yes.
lot of these students, their parents are market women selling the market, or have a little bit of side place. So the challenges are enormous, but we approach things from the perspective that you have to learn to maximize. Moses, what is in your hand? That's my philosophy in life. We got to work with what we have in our hands, and we're making the best of it.
Wow. Fisha said, "Amazing that you are doing this with volunteers in villages." I mean, that
Yeah.
speaks volume. Just to get them to buy into the vision that, what, we don't have a lot, but what we have is that your children is the future, and to see these people with all, any kind of as I mentioned, any kind of formal compensation or regular compensation, heeding your voice and say, even though we don't have, but teach us that we'll teach them. Is
Exactly.
very admirable thing to do, and so really applaud for that. Do you find sometimes that I mean, are there some programs or some grants, that government could come alongside, with private sector churches, to kind of assist? I mean, is that a common thing you see, or is still a challenge because of the whole, appropriations and things like that?
The government is overwhelmed. They might offer some training for, especially for the schools we run at in the capital city. So we might receive some training from the Ministry of Education. They will send inspectors to inspect the facilities to make sure that we abide by the curriculum, WIAC, and things like that. So the churches will have to take on the responsibility of having programs to raise additional resources, or like I said, those of us who are in the diaspora who are able to chip in and to help. I know there are times CCC Minnesota has to help with some stuff to help the students back there. We're talking about the computer lab that we want to open for the high school. Definitely, I have to go to my people here and say how many you can buy, but one can you buy one computer, or stuff like that. So we do that a lot, but the what we hope to achieve is far outweighs the sacrifices financially that we must make. I don't need another coat suit. I don't need a new shoes. I don't, those things are, I don't need it. That $150 can go to help somebody do something better. So that's where we are right now. It's all about impacting the next generation and leaving a lasting legacy
Yes.
in that republic. The opportunities we had when we were born in Liberia, the war has taken it away.
Yes.
Liberia has never recovered from where she used to be, unfortunately. But based upon our experiences and how we were raised, we still anticipate a situation where we will continue to make progress and exceed what our parents left. We every generation. Let me tell you this story before I leave. The first time I came to the United States, I was invited. I worked with the Monroe Bible Training Center. I was one of the professors at the school. I taught eschatology and pastoral theology. And so God favored me, and the late Russ Tetro brought me to the United States with Director Moses Foyer for the first time in 95. 97, 98, my cousin Patrick Neepaye got married in Silver Spring at Bethel, and the reception was in Washington D.C. So the late Russ Tetcher, who's an American Caucasian, he said, Edward, drive with me, and Russ Tetcher asked me a question. He said, Ed, this is my second visit. He said, what's your impression of America? And wisdom demands when you're with a senior minister, he asks you a question, ask him a question back. I said, well, you either envy the Americans or you admire them. I said to him, Reverend Russ Tetro, I admire you folks. Wherever you take us across this country those days as missionaries, we come and we travel with him all over America to different mission centers, raising money for the West African missions. I said, everywhere I go throughout this country is progressive. Then I asked him the question, Brother Russ, what's the secret? What's the American secret? And this is what he said to me. Every generation of Americans are taught that America must be left better for their children.
Wow.
That philosophy has been ingrained in my heart. Are we leaving a better Africa? Are we leaving a better Liberia? That's what drives me. Apart from the heaven, getting people ready for eternity and salvation, we must
Yeah.
leave a legacy that outweighs what we experience. Now, it's a huge task. Like I said,
Yes.
I was born and
Yes.
raised in Lamco Yekepa. How are you going to go back and overdo that? But it's possible. The age of technology has made knowledge available at a click of a button. We must maximize what's been given to us.
Wow, wow, we are pretty much at the end of our conversation. But let me just read just a few of the comments that have come through as you were speaking. Michelle solely concurred with what you were saying concerning partnership, especially in the diaspora. She mentioned that same for us in the Bong Mines education is assisted by volunteers. BECAA actually pay teachers and volunteers for our resource center. So there's a work being done, and people that have more than others, in this organization is chipping in. So certainly that could, we can't depend on government, especially in Africa. I mean, if
No,
if it comes, it's fine, but pretty much, just people who would come alongside to do that. Pastor Venus Camus say hi too. She's watching as well.
I
And
woman of God.
yes, yes. She talked about she concur also about leaving a legacy. So yes. So we have these comments. But man of God, I want to thank you again just for being here. This is a very important issue, folks. Youth engagement for a better Africa. and we just want to, concur and just re-echo what he just said. The question he asked that young that senior minister, and his response, you know, leave it better than deliver it in a better sense to the next generation than the way
Next generation.
the way you saw it. And so I would say this, as we wrap up. Do you, Apostle, have optimism that Africa will be changed and transformed into a better Africa? Are you optimistic of that?
Oh, definitely. Ethiopia, Ghana, and other. We have some tangibles. We have some tangibles. It's all about leadership. With the right leadership, and I must commend. I'm very impressed with strides that are being taken by the Boyka administration. He's a visionary leader. I always like to say he's a William Talbot of our generation. He's not perfect. No government is perfect. But if you follow the trajectory, 5 6 years from now, if we just continue with the road development, the educational sector, the agricultural sector, that vision that he has, the arrest agenda, I'm not looking for job. I beg you. I already want it. But yeah, if you
Okay.
just look at the trajectory, he's leading the republic. He's on the right track. And so Africa and Liberia, we have the natural resources. Now come and think about it. We have the natural resources. And so if we can just use what God has given us, go into low scale industrialization, stop mortgaging your natural resources. There has to be value added. Like, again, I don't want to take it into the realm of economics. I'm not an expert in that area. I did accounting in LU, and then I came and did pre-law in the United States. But again, my research has proven that with the natural resources that we have, the future, and that's not just coming from me. It's coming from people who study trends. Look at what Dangote has done. Nigeria is now exporting jet fuel.
Wow.
So the possibility is there's a lot of positive trends coming out of Africa. Okay, but again, it goes to industrialization. God has given us the natural resources. Value added is all we need. Then we would garner the resources necessary to invest. In the interim, the church must approach ministry holistically. It must move beyond just preparing people for eternity. We must prepare them to dominate and subdue the earth.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Apostle Edward Nippy. Thank you so much for your time with us. Friends, this brings us to the end of our conversation with him. Again, engage the young people. Africa has a future. Africa can do better by simply doing right. And as you have a voice and a platform like this, or maybe your personal platform, sound the alarm, sound the alarm, sound the alarm. Educate the African, educate your brothers and sisters back on the continent of Africa, and let them know that there's hope. There's hope. If we only do right in terms of education, in terms of appropriations, in terms of discipline, Africa will shine like a bright light in the world. Apostle, thank you again for your time, and hopefully we can have you back
Thank you,
again.
Doc.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody. God
Doc.
bless you, everybody. See you next Thursday again. We'll have another guest speaker for us. But in the meantime, have a blessed and a wonderful week. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Amen.